how storms actually are the reason why we grow in our life. It's how
True.
I want to look at it. I was just giving an analogy to someone the other day that, the global warming, it's how I want to look at it. I could look at it at saying that, oh, it's dangerous, where are we going and all that stuff. Or I can say that, can I look into it, dig into it? Maybe the earth is giving me a message. Let's do something about it.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
that's the change then will happen. So if we take in the storm the way it's meant to be, then the growth will happen. Otherwise, the stalemate, and like in the Erickson's 8 stages that I've mentioned in the book, there are every stage in our life from the childhood, adolescence, teenage, parenthood, middle age, old age. All of these stages create certain challenges in our life.
Absolutely.
And how I'm able to work that out and move forward is important. Otherwise, that stuckness tomorrow will come out as anything else, like a depression or anything else.
Hi, we are the Confident Communicator, and I am Seema Mehta, along with my partner Deepma Jadeja. Welcome to Imperfect Parenting. Together, let's get on a journey of discovering kindness, success, and happiness courageously, fearlessly, and by holding ourselves to a standard of grace, not perfection. It is our mission at the Confident Communicator to empower kids and adults discover their own uniqueness through our coaching, training, and soft skills program. We welcome you to a new chapter of Imperfect Parenting, a series dedicated to discovering our own uniqueness without judgment by chiseling away all superfluous materials within ourselves.
Hi everyone, this is Seema Mehta from the Confident Communicator along with Deepma Jadeja, and we are here once again for an exciting episode of Imperfect Parenting because we're going to talk a little bit about our own essence. And our speaker today is a leadership and behavioral expert and coach, Amritha Upadhyaya, who is also, coincidentally, going to be releasing her new book, Secret Gifts from the Perfect Storm. And it is such an intriguing title that Amrita, first of all, welcome and thank you for being on our show. And I'm so excited to hear a little bit about the name Secret Gifts from the Perfect Storm. Why? It sounds kind of like there's a lot of stories behind it. So tell us about this book and tell us a little bit about what inspired you to actually write this book.
Yeah. So it goes way back. Inspiration for writing a book went way back in 2016 when I had come up with the concept of a storm, and I named the concept as I Ove Me. That's the name of the concept, and it's an acronym for a full process of the storm, which is completely in the book. I've used analogies and the protagonist Anita's life journey to explain how that process of handling our own storms and come out in a positive way is done, and what happens when we back off, when we think we are evading, but actually the storms does not allow anyone to move away, and then what's the process. So all of that is mentioned for our own self growth. So the concept of the idea of the book came way back in 2016, but there's a lot of lack of clarity in terms of exactly what we talk about essence today. So what's the essence of the book? And somewhere around between 12 to 2016, there's a lot of I indulged in a lot of self-development, self-transformation programs. I got certified in ICF coach as well, which is the program was about transforming self before we transform others. So there was a lot of change, and people could see that and all that.
Yeah.
And of course, we always say, and my book also talks about how storms actually are the reason why we grow in our life. It's
True.
how I want to look at it. I was just giving an analogy to someone the other day that, the global warming, it's how I want to look at it. I could look at it at saying that, oh, it's dangerous, where are we going and all that stuff. Or I can say that, can I look into it, dig into it? Maybe the earth is giving me a message. Let's do something about it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the change then will happen. So if we take in the storm the way it's meant to be, then the growth will happen. Otherwise, the stalemate, and like in the Erickson's 8 stages that I've mentioned in the book, there are every stage in our life from the childhood, adolescence, teenage, parenthood, middle age, old age, all of these stages create certain challenges in our life.
Absolutely.
And how I'm able to work that out and move forward is important. Otherwise, that stuckness tomorrow will come out as anything else, like a depression or anything else.
True.
Yeah.
In fact, I was listening to a podcast recently where there was this Auschwitz survivor, the concentration camps in Germany, and this lady was talking about how she really did have absolutely no animosity towards the soldiers who were guarding that particular concentration camp. And one thing she said, which I thought was extremely pertinent, and she said something like, you are a prisoner in your own jail. So I have nothing against those soldiers because they were just doing their job. And I have no animosity towards them because they were just doing their job. And every single human being is a prisoner in their own mental jail. And I think that when you talk about the perfect storm, I think what we are talking about is that we need to recognize that it is a jail that we have ourselves created, and we need to work towards resolving what is unresolved in order to make any changes in our behavior. Is that the direction that you are going towards here?
Yeah. So I would prefer to use the word voices than the jail, or patterns than the jail, or the boxes that we have created for ourselves.
Yeah.
And somewhere around 2019, through tragic circumstances, when I lost my twin, 2020, I lost somebody somebody very close. And the few conversations that I was having with certain friends, where I realized there's so much negativity surrounding a constructive approach to working on my voices, constructive approach to working on my fears, on my insecurities, instead of putting it, shrugging it on the carpet. We think we have shrugged it on the carpet, but it stays. It's going to be stuck inside our body and it doesn't go anywhere. And our body is the one who takes in everything. The mind doesn't take, mind puts it to the body, right?
Correct.
So you have all the diseases coming up because of that, and tendencies to suicide and all of those things. So that really brought the essence of the book for me, and it was new 2 seconds when I actually took the title. Created. It's just that I took a long time.
It's a great title. It's a great
confirm that this is what I want, but it took few seconds.
I think, Amritha, when we were talking earlier, you said something very interesting, where you said you learn so much more, or you grow so much more through storms of your life than through the calm, gentle times of your life. And one of the things I realized when we have been speaking is that you're so willing to put yourself in a vulnerable position, to accept your vulnerabilities so as to be able to tell your story and help others with their journey. And can you tell us a little bit about that, the stories in the book, and a little bit about Anita's journey through the book?
So thanks for bringing that up, Deepma. But one rider before I say that, there are many times I also don't, I'm not in the vulnerable self. I run away from being there. So let's be honest, because otherwise I would be a Buddha, right?
Yeah, it's uncomfortable to be vulnerable.
It's very uncomfortable. But people who have known me before and known me after 2016, and even now for that matter, see so much difference. And they also say they get inspired. So I'm very blessed to, be able to contribute that way. So coming back to your point, yes, the journey writing the book was not easy. I have created a protagonist, Anita, because I did not want to personalize the story. I wanted it to be able to connect to the readers, and that's the review that I've got so far, is they're able to connect it very well, because I've made it look from the eyes of Anita, the protagonist.
Yes.
So, but it is all completely inspired through my own journeys, honestly. And it's always, and you will see through and there are a lot of flashbacks that happens, etc. And you will see that the growth only happened because Anita stayed with that storm, either with the help of a therapist, or once she became equipped to work on herself, to be able to work on herself. So whether it is to deal with herself, and we also discussed earlier, I remember, when we talked about wanting to change other people, right? Circumstances and other people are circle of influence, but what's in the locus of control that I have is me.
Right.
If I can transform myself, I can influence my circle of influence. And I've seen that happen with my son, with my husband, other aspects as well. So what's important is own it up for yourself. That's why also the word I owe me, because as long as I owe it to me, the change is I owe it to me. The vulnerability is I owe it to me.
So, Amritha, this episode is called Imperfect Parenting, and we are going to circle back into why we are talking about this in the first place. And I know that when we had our conversation about it, you mentioned that a parent's unresolved issues usually makes kids the softer target. And the reason why we are talking about this is we want to talk about what is the core sense of self, and why is it that it is important for us to resolve anything unresolved to become better parents. So, with the vulnerability conversation, it's fine because this is imperfect parenting. It's not perfect parenting. It's imperfect parenting. But why is it so important for us to talk about it as parents, and how can parents help influence the behavior or deal with the behavior of a child if they resolve their own issues?
So I'll take a step-by-step approach of opening the onion peel. Yeah. So if you look at a journey if I give an analogy of pottery, right? Molding of the pot. There is everybody can't do it. It sounds, watching a video of somebody making a pot, it sounds easy. But when we ourselves do it, it becomes very difficult. Hands hurt, become shapeless. Correct. So obviously so people think, I'm become a parent, it's automatic. So there is some level of conscious learning required, which used to happen eons back with the ecosystem of others being around us. Now we don't
grandparents and great grandparents, yes.
Yeah. And that is something which I think people need to be aware of, that what we are birthed is a very, very soft, tender being. And if I press too hard, it goes some other way. If I don't press enough, it'll probably burst. So we need to be tenderly shaping it at the same time, not the way I want to shape it.
Right.
Because the way I want to shape it is probably, I love that long bottle, and so I want to shape it like that. That's probably my concept of thinking that a girl should be like that or a boy should be like that, right? For example, today's in both ways, either for example, the way our parents think, believe, is also what is passed on to us, right? And maybe tomorrow onwards, at just 24 hours, if you just sit back and you will notice and take one example from your life and try to observe, and you'll see a lot of family members having similar patterns of behaviors or beliefs, right?
Right.
That is what we transfer, but that may not be good enough for that person, because the person has grown up in a different way, right?
Right.
And so, for example, when I'm given in the book, Anita, examples, authoritative figures that the child came up looking at. Eric Berne comes up with a beautiful. Eric Berne is a famous psychologist who, has really influenced my way of looking at things. He says, children at the age of 3 to 4, okay, they're not duds. By the age of 3 to 4, they have started building their life script like a drama script. Skeleton saying, if I cry, I will be hit, so stop crying. Or if I cry, I will get food, so keep crying. Whichever way, if I rebel, people will give attention, and a lot of other things,
Right.
And then by the age of adolescence, it starts putting fictitious characters like Harry Potter and say, see, this is the behavior. See, he behaved like that. See, this is what happens. I told you, right?
Yeah.
And by the age of teenagers and adulthood, it's reinforced, and that's the pattern. Yeah. So what we're talking about here is, it destroys the essence.
Yes.
So if I go back to the analogy of the pot, if I come from that emptiness of nothingness, that I know how to do, I've been trained, I'll just go with the flow and let me see what emerges.
Yes.
You never know, something might emerge which nobody has ever seen. It could be a masterpiece.
True.
Right? So what is the important is, when we are parenting, it's not easy, by the way. That's why I use the analogy, because analogy makes it look easier. Yeah. But ask a potter, he will know how difficult it was to create the first masterpiece.
Right.
So it is difficult, because the crux is, I need to be authentic, and in the vulnerable self and not from a patterned way of thinking, right? For example, Anita's parent had her own way of issues. Like our parents have their issues, and their parents had issues,
Right.
and they gave those issues to their parents, and they are giving it to us. So,
Correct.
but if I can operate henceforth from a conscious space, I can break that pattern.
Correct. Correct.
So Anita's, for example, they very difficult. A mom had a very difficult upbringing where the girl had to do everything. The girl had to be a strong person to be able to handle everyone, and she expected the same thing. And from a village, whereas here I'm growing in a tier 1 cosmopolitan city, you can't expect the same thing. And I've written a beautiful poem here. I mean, that poem will give the crux of the whole thing that I'm saying. And I just thought I'll read that out.
Sure.
Love for you to share it. Yeah.
It's there in the book as well. And this came up when I was in a storm of really wondering what was happening to me. And this also brings you the next question is how to identify the essence. So I was in that space of really feeling bad and grieving, and how come I am not still good enough, and how come I still have to live up to expectations and stuff like that. And then this poem came. It says the topic is I am me in capital letters. I am me. Who I am is a part of you. This was like a letter to my mother.
Yeah.
You are my creator because I came from within you. So why then am I not fully like you? Or the way you might have imagined or wished me to be. Every parent would love their child to be like them, but think about it. Yes, you created me. You put your soul into creating me. You gave me the values and ethos that make me strong and till date drives me. She's a very strong lady. Along the way, before I came into this world, I also had parts of dad in me. And lo and behold, when I came to this world, I was a mutation of you and dad and your ancestors before that. How can that be bad?
Yes.
We never questioned them. How are you questioning us, right? From you, I got the courage of conviction, values of boldness, honesty, and compassion. From dad, I got the spirit of adventure and exploration. And the dream to experiment with self, passion for mystic and drama, yearning for solitude and being alone. Though these may not be the ideal qualities you envisaged in a woman, because this is something she's always like, be a woman, But this is how I got. I am a genetic mutation of both of you. I can't be only one, right? And so as I was growing, searching for a footing of who I was becoming, I also embodied the energies that which were present in my surroundings. I was not from a village. Isn't this how a gem gets formed over the years by a plethora of elements around and not just by the pure carbon that initially created it?
True.
Oh, I'm proud and delighted that I am a unique combination of you, dad, and the universe around me. But this is how I am whole and complete. I am me, and this is how I have to be.
I love the word uniqueness that you use, because I think that's something that even in our programs we constantly talk about, and even in our conversations with so many other guests, almost everybody in the end says that we need to recognize and honor and respect the uniqueness of every single individual. Yet we become that potter who's trying to create that masterpiece and is trying to make that perfect pot and is failing at it all the time. So yeah, how does
I was just thinking about this. This was something that my daughter brought up to me, and this poem just completely hits me in that spot because it looked like something she was trying to say, where there's a part of us that says, I want you to be like this because that's how I was and that's how I was raised, and therefore you should be like me. And then there's another part of us that says, I want you to be like this because those were the things that I couldn't achieve and you need to achieve them. And think of the dichotomy of what message we are sending to our children, because we want them to be everything that we are and we want them to be everything that we aren't. Right. So, and that's where you said, I am me, and that's how I'm going to be. And I love that. That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Because I that's what my daughter suddenly made me realize, ki, Mom, I can't be you and not be
Yeah.
you.
I
Right?
think that's the expectation that children sort of rebel against, because it's just virtually impossible to satisfy what the parent is really looking for, because you are not that person. So I think having that conscious parenting, that conscious mindful way of thinking about, you've got to not lay that expectation on your children becomes so critical, right? And recognizing the core essence of your child becomes so important. And how does one do that, though? Amrita? Tell us how one does.
Yeah, so you spoke about the uniqueness in each person, and that's what is called essence. It's not something stupendous or something. It's base. It's a very intrinsic part of everyone, right? It's basically the qualities that make us who we are, make us alive, make us tick like a clock every day. So everybody has certain things. And like I read somewhere recently that the best question to ask to understand that would be, if you are not molded by your parents by the time you're 3 to 4 years for the first 3 to 4 years in your life, who would you be today? So to Deepma, the question is the same thing, right? When you ask, when I am parenting, I would like to be like her to be like me. I would ask you to ask the question to yourself: who would I have been if my parents did not mold me the way I did?
Yes.
Oh, you will cry.
That's that inner work that you were talking
That's
about.
the crux for you to understand. That's called here and now. So then you'll be detached. So this question is so powerful because I love this question because I woke up. When I read this question, I just woke up. And waking up means that I'm conscious of the here and now and not operating from that zone.
Correct.
That usually I operate from, because this is how I'm patterned to think. I'm patterned to think that girls should not choose marketing. Just giving you some random that comes to my mind, right? Roaming around, Joe's civil engineering and roaming the every day outside and in the heat and the dust. Girls should not do that. If I'm coming from that pattern, I'm not talking about right or wrong here. It could be right. It could be some experiences. That experience may exist even today. That situation may exist today as well. It may not exist, but whichever it is, we need to be present. Where am I coming from? Is it just a belief, right? So I'll give you an example. I'll give an example for you to understand this. So, for example, when I was bringing up my son in the 9th grade, he was typically, I understood. So I have known him to be, because his essence has always been curiosity. Curious child. Almost a situation happened where curiosity kills a cat happened way back when he was 6 years old. But so that essence, and he's a competitive kid, and because of curiosity, it's always about wanting information, but kinesthetically, not theoretical concepts and stuff. So I knew these certain things of these because I've worked on all the self-awareness and all that. And in the 9th grade, an above IQ kid was almost flunking in almost all the subjects, including his favorite subjects of maths, etc. And an only child. So I knew there's something we got to do. And it took days of trying to open it up. One day I just sat with myself, right? One of the ways when you said, how do you understand? Is first of all, the question that I asked you, right? The first answer was, I was never allowed to be me. So my essence was love. So automatically when our essence is pushed or snubbed and throttled, we become our shadow selves. So essence is light, shadow self. So if the essence is love, shadow could be anger. So for a long time, people knew me as angry girl.
So you what you're saying is that you have to allow the child to thrive in their essence.
We just hold them. We don't create it for them. Yeah.
Yes, but how does a parent figure out what their child's essence? I mean, is it easy? How do you figure that out?
So typically, I'll just give some examples. And then I'll tell you, so you'll know the process. For example, if I said my son's essence was curiosity, when it is throttled, there's a lot of laziness. There's no curiosity, absolutely no curiosity, because he's snubbed it off, because he knows that the more curious he gets, the more he's going to be disappointed, because it's not going to be allowed. So one point of time, he just closes himself off to that, and he operates. He has told himself, this is not going to help me survive in life. The child has learned it long back. So he stopped using those things. For example, there's somebody I know, recently we spoke about the child, very energetic, not a destructive child at all, very energetic and very empathetic, but so much so that he goes to somebody's houses and, that the child sees something, takes up something, breaks things, right? And he gets beaten
Or punished.
for it,
Yeah.
punished for it. So what happens is, there is some essence that they have not identified that it becomes destructive. He starts rebelling. So if I look at, right now I've not spoken to the person, but if I look at the opposite of destruction, what is it? Creation.
Creation. Yeah.
And think about that energy of that child. He wants to feel, curiously feel things to create and develop. Otherwise, that person, oh, what's this about? I want to, and fundamentally, children break things to create, right?
Yes.
Kinesthetically.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that kind of energy, probably. And of course, through more questioning will come. But what am I doing to that creative? So probably the essence is creation. Think about it. How many people have essence of creation?
Yeah.
And it's getting
That's
into destruction.
what's his name? I might be butchering this, but I think it was Picasso who said, right, every child's born a genius, and
Yeah.
then we snuff it out of them
Yeah.
over the period of life, right?
Yeah.
And so I remember one of our parents saying, one of our guests, I think, saying that she used to be very curious, like you said, and she used to ask a lot of questions in school, and then she would get punished, and she had to stand outside the class and all of that because she was asking too many stupid, quote unquote, stupid questions. And she said, what happened was I became an adult that never questioned anything, right? And just accepted everything that was. So that's kind of dangerous, because then you're killing the creativity. Right?
The reason why your question about essence is important, we'll probably come to that further question, is in a rainbow also, is every person, if I can tap that essence, then I can wade through all the challenges in my life. So when there are dark moments, there are difficult moments,
Yes.
it's that essence, if you can hold on to that strength within you, that is the core inner part of you, which will always help you.
Yeah.
So when Seema, you asked, how do you identify? Some of the ways to identify, of course, it's a huge process.
Right.
Could be the appreciative inquiry way of asking questions. So the first question I asked you, if you were not molded, what would you be? So it's an appreciative inquiry, inquiring inside to say, for example, instead of saying, why is this not working? What we say is, what is in me that can solve this problem? That's a way of appreciative way of looking at things. So that could be used. For example, we could say, talk about, and usually this is to be done. The reason it's not initially people will need help to do this is because you need to remove all the clutter and voices first.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff that says,
do you ask the child or you ask yourself? What is it in me
if
that
I have to talk about for my own self, I do that. If I want to groom that child into identifying it's her essence, I will do that to the child.
Because I think it's important, right? For the most important person in your life, or the two most important people in your life in the first at least 21 years are your parents. So I would say that we need to give parents this ability to identify what is the child's essence and then help them on that path.
Yeah.
So I would like you to talk a little bit about that, because...
Yeah. So if you ask me that way, I'll go back to that example that I said about my son who was not doing well in his studies. So I used a technique called ABC, which is called activation, behavioral, and consequences. The acronym is for that. I'll talk about it. Yeah. So of course, at that time, I was not sure of the ABC. I automatically did it, but I know that consciously now there's a technique like that. It's a cognitive way of processing. Is when I was like,
parents' instinct is usually right, Amritha. That's amazing.
Yes. What's important here is because I had already dabbled in ontology and way of being already, I've worked on that. I was in that space of being aware that what am I being? Otherwise, most times people, we just go on doing, not realizing what am I being. If I'm being a strict parent, I create either a very highly compliant child or a rebel child, etc. Right? Yeah. All the time, not all. Sometimes it's important. If I'm too controlling, for example. But if I'm over nurturing, I might create a spoiled child, or stuff like that. So what am I being is important.
Both ends of the spectrum are not necessarily where you want to be.
So walk us through your conversation with your son. You were saying that he wasn't doing well.
Yeah,
so how did you all have that conversation? I'm very curious to know, what was that conversation? What transpired between the two of you?
Yeah. So what happened was, I realized things were not working. Nothing was working. Okay. I was asking him questions, why, except nothing was working. So the one day, there's a lot of fear and anxiety within me, because I know he's a very competitive kid, and for such a kid and a curious kid. So such a kid, what happens is, they nosedive in their own eyes, you know. And I was really worried about how it's going to go for him in future, and not nothing to do with marks or academics. I was really worried for him, you know. So I just sat one day and I just sat with that fear. So I didn't run away. First of all, I didn't run away from that. I was vulnerable and I stayed in that vulnerability.
Yes.
What parents sometimes do is, no. How can I feel weak? If I'm weak, then I can't handle. No, if you're weak, stay in that space. That the space will tell you why you are weak. If you don't understand why you're weak, how can you be strong?
Right.
If I don't know whether to take aspirin or crocin, what will I do? I'll take the wrong medicine.
Correct.
So I stayed in that space maybe a couple of days. I don't remember right now. And it's a process that we learn through our being helped through a therapist. I was already undergoing and I had already gone through it. So I had some idea about it. And what came to me was, the best technique is to feel. What is the feeling in the body, in the heart, everywhere? Feel it, you know. Many times, trust me, all the coachings that I do, 90%, if I am optimistic, otherwise I would say 99% of the time, people have stopped feeling. So when I ask them to feel, they give me words like, thinking words like, I think what do you call, some technical word they'll use, but feeling sad, guilty.
I think they don't want to deal with what they are feeling, maybe. They don't want to confront it, or they're not aware. Yeah.
They shunned it because it's easier to do that, right?
Yeah, it's easier to do that. Yeah.
So staying with that feeling, what I realized is, Amritha, what are you being? Is the first question I asked. And when I'm saying being, it's energetic zone. What are you? What is the energy space? I said, the first answer was Amritha, parent. Okay, which is fine. I am a parent.
Yeah.
But parent is also a role. Okay, as a role, yes. But as an energy, what am I being? I realize I'm being the typical, strict, controlling, and the way. I said, no, I don't like that feeling. That feeling was not apt. And I asked, what is that I like to be? What is that space I want to be? And that clear came out love, because that's my essence. Okay, so no wonder I'm in a healing and a coaching space. So love for me came out very, very clearly. I just want to be love. I want to love, as in, I don't want to mollycoddle, but I want to be pure, unconditional love for creation. Now, if I come from that space, of love, okay, what is that I will want from my son? I will want him to be happy. That's all, right? Okay, simple. And then I asked, so this is what I did, the A is activating situations. What is that situation that activates triggers? So I took up some of the situations this is talked about, where he was not studying well and he's not getting his marks, and I could see his energies goes down. I could see him totally demotivated. So I could see that happening, you know. So I took that event and stayed with those feelings. And once you do that, it's a fraction of a minute. So second thing, when I talked about behaviors, is what are the behaviors and beliefs? What are the beliefs that get activated through this situation?
Yeah.
So the belief that came out is, I need to do this. I need to do. That's when I stayed with it. Hold it. I don't like it.
You need to solve it. Yeah.
So now the belief shifted to not as a typical parent. I just need to be pure love. That's all the belief came out. So for that, the reason I said the clutters, I was trained by then to remove all the patterned way of beliefs and thinking. So initially you need somebody to hold you for that.
Yeah.
And once I realized that, then the next question was, what's the consequence? In fact, it's such a fraction of a second. That's why I missed out. First ABC is, if I'm being a parent, typical controlling parent, or too much nurturing, mollycoddling parent, then what is the belief I'm coming from that my son should do this, my son should get this marks, and this, it was very claustrophobic, by the way.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
what should be the, what will be the consequence? I could see the consequence that's happening. So the ABC,
Yes.
right? So then we shift it and say that, okay, what is that you want to be? And what is the situation you want to create? So then I look at a different kind of a situation, event that I want to create. For that, what is that I have to be? The beliefs. What is that I have to become?
Yeah.
The beliefs were that. And hence, what is the consequence of those? The consequence would be that he'll be happy. Okay. Then again, go back to ABC. As in, what is my belief about happiness? Oh, that struck me. I was like, how do I know getting this so-and-so marks in maths is going to make him happy? It may make me happy, but I don't know what will. So because I came from a very neutral space of unconditional love without any condition, I was able to detach myself from my understanding of happiness to his understanding of happiness.
Happiness, correct.
And I realized I don't know what makes him happy. At the age of 36, or I don't know, I realized I do not know what makes my son happy. My son was already 9th standard, 14 years of age. I do not know what makes him happy, which is a rude shock. But I loved the sweetness of the storm because that made me ask more questions. That is why I say every storm, every challenge is a boon to you.
Yeah, you get these secret gifts from that perfect storm. That's exactly
So
why the
then,
name of the book.
Yeah. So then again, I did the ABC exercise. So it's when we say rewiring ourselves, it's about taking that event, taking the triggers, the beliefs, and seeing the consequence. You like the consequence? No, I don't like the consequence. So let's change it. Look at what the situation you would like to be. Look at what the kind of beliefs that needs to be. Look at what the consequence, and hence what actions I should take.
And for all the parents who are listening to this episode, I mean, it can get very complex, and then there is some expert that you need to kind of hold your hand to kind of go through this process. However, I think this first step is something that any parent can do, which is the awareness. Do you feel like your child is in the essence that they were meant to be? And as parents, like Deepma said, we do have an instinct about it. There is an instinct about it. We may not recognize the instinct, but because we are clouded by, oh, he's not doing well, she's not doing well, very bad marks, or is very shy, or whatever the reasons are, we get very clouded by it. But our instinct is telling us that this is the essence of the child, and that awareness is the first step. And I think that once we have that awareness, then we can get this kind of external support, or even do this exercise of ABC to really get into that space of what is it that you want for your child. And
so
if you're
awareness, like you said rightly, awareness about what is that I'm being, and hence what am I creating, rather than saying, oh, the situation is like that, I need to change that person. No, what are you creating for that event to happen?
Yeah,
is that awareness that is first required.
I love that. I love that you're saying ask these questions and then sit with those answers, right? And be proactive about the situation that you're creating rather than reacting to a situation that's already there and reacting probably in a ineffective way.
Yeah, because I have been I have contributed in molding that kid. So there is a 95 to 99% chance that I am creating the scenario. So can I stay in the storm and point the finger at me first and figure out what is that I can create to reverse it? We always do the reverse. We look at the child saying, "वो ऐसे behave कर रहा है."
Yeah, but we shift the blame from our own storm and our own whatever we are not resolving, and shift the blame to the child, saying that you are the one who's doing, you are the person who is not getting good marks, you are the one. So I think what you are saying is that parents need to take a step back and kind of stay in their own storm to sort of really understand what is it that they are dumping on their children. And that's beautiful. That's really well said. I remember in our previous conversation there was one line that you used which I thought was really amazing, which is pick your rainbow. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so pick your rainbow is also similar to the core essence, core strength that each of us have, right? So the example that I would like to give is in 2009 when I was I think it was one of the most lowest periods in my life where I lost something very precious. I mentioned that in the book. I lost my dad, who was actually the masculine holding support for their family. And I'm talking from the energy perspective, not the gender perspective. And my son was crumbling in a lot of spaces because I was crumbling. And the doc told me that, Amrita, if you don't take care of yourself, you'll die of shock in the next 6 months. So in every sense, I was crumbling. And I've heard of suicide cases and stuff like that. Here, it was not suicide. It was like I was letting my health take me out of my life, But what got me out of the bed every day, take myself to counseling sessions, was I sat myself. I could have easily said, okay, forget it. Achhi baat hai. Let me just go away, right? But what brought me out of the darkness is, in that space, I know one of my core essence is, like I told you, is love. And I'm talking about pure, universal, in terms of the internal, external harmony, the sync of, how do I say, it's a life source energy where, that just gets you up every day. And I realized I have so much love for my son that it just automatically brought me up. So every day I would do that. Of course, after a period of time, he also went for counseling and all that. So when I say the inner rainbow, I also, it's not like overnight I get up and I feel it. No, for that, you need to be in that storm of that feeling. Like I gave you the example of the parenting example, where I stayed with that storm of vulnerability of am I contributing? It's tough for a parent to say, I am contributing to that.
Yes.
But we need to sit with it. And through that, the rainbow was, what am I being? I mean, imagine the strength that I can get out of that knowledge that I just need. It completely de-stressed me when I realized all I need to be is pure love to him. I don't have any other expectation out of myself. It was so de-stressing.
Yeah.
It took the pressure off, right? Of I have to do this. No, I just have to provide him with unconditional love. That's all that he needs.
I think inherently most human beings, I mean, that certainly is the case for all of us, is that somewhere inherently we don't desire to be unhappy. We desire to be happy. However, when an incident happens or some situation or some challenge comes into our life, we look at the challenge and say, okay, now that this challenge has happened, all I'm going to be is unhappy, because I just want to kind of stay in that storm for some time and continue with that challenge of being unhappy. But that inherent nature of the human being to be happy is also there, which is where I think that picking up your rainbow becomes very critical, because you have to then eventually make a choice, right? I mean, when you made the choice of, all I need to do is love him unconditionally. It doesn't matter what he's doing, what his circumstances are, whatever the consequences are. My thing is that I need to love him unconditionally, and I need to survive myself in order to continue to love him, because that's what my inherent temperament is. So how do we, I mean, there is obviously a distinction between being happy, being miserable, and being in pain. So you can be unhappy and you can be in pain, and the pain can continue for a long period of time. It doesn't mean that you have to stay in that state of unhappiness. You can still look for that rainbow and sort of get out of it. Is that something?
Yeah, so
that makes
very
sense?
beautifully put. So in 2019, when my twin brother died, and for me it was very, very traumatic. I'm still working on sometimes the grief does come up.
Yes.
Because a twin soul, it was more like the soul is going to be, it was no brainer. He's going to be with me for the rest of my life. That's how it was,
Yeah.
So 1 year of battling with him for his cancer, all that took a toll. So the first 1 year, there's a lot of grief. I would rapture in grief. There are days when I would be incapacitated with grief, and I used to be angry. Don't even ask how angry. But I didn't. So the typical patterned way of programming us, is by certain people who themselves were scared of handling the situation, is don't feel that, it does not help. And this is a toxic positivity that made me trigger to write this book as well, where people will say, oh, let's not talk about it.
I'm so glad you are talking about this, because that toxic positivity is a curse, and I think we got to do away with it. Absolutely.
Yeah. So sometimes when we grieve a lot, there is a lot more bleeding and all that for women and all, right? So I've heard of women saying, no, that's why I don't get into this thing, body work, because all that stuff. But then the body is saying something,
Yes.
Of course, with medical help, we'll hold it. I'm not saying ignore that symptom, but there is something there, So I held on. I did a lot of drawing therapy, dance therapy, energies, meditations. All of these aspects actually are important, because they take away the voices and you become in a very no zone, nothingness zone. And that's the zone where you actually can tap into what's really happening within. What is this? So So there was a lot of anger and guilt before the grief
Yes.
came into picture.
Yeah.
And then through the wisdom and through the processing, I realized that guilt is all about the patterns of thinking that I'm not good enough. I didn't do much. So I have this perfectionist part of me, which is try hard, be strong no matter what. And these are all patterns that as a
Yes.
child growing up, I've watched and learned from my parents.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? They may
We
not
mim-
have purposefully
We
said
mimic
that
our
to me,
parents. Yeah. We mimic our parents' behavior. Yeah.
but
Absolutely.
I was aware of it by now. So I stayed with it, and I realized that the logical self and all the people I was talking to, my therapists, peers, everyone did give me those insights. I also did self-coaching and did take help from others, because there are
Yes.
times when you're so down in it. And
Yeah.
all of them, they made me also realize that there's so much I did that in 1 year. I did not even eat or sleep well,
Right.
right? And still I'm saying I'm not good enough, I didn't do enough. That's when I was able to really sit, and it's not a conscious thing, this comes within you. And I was
Yeah.
able to figure out and detach that pattern thinking and grief. And then I realized the guilt was gone, only the grief left. And
Yeah,
it took
and
time for the grief to
pain
take its
lingers.
course.
I mean, that's what we are saying, that pain doesn't, just because we are making a choice to be happy, doesn't mean that the pain will not will go away. For example, with the passing of your twin, the pain is always going to be there. Every single time you talk about him or you think about him or you bring him up, the pain resurfaces. Having
But
said that,
having said that, beautifully, having said that, few changes do happen. One is the frequency of it goes away. Second, the intensity of it. So the first few months, the intensity, my chest used to hurt.
Physically,
so
it
badly.
would pain. Yeah, physically.
I used to get body palpitations. I used to hurt. All of that. My mind was foggy. Like my clarity of speech was gone.
Yeah.
Right? People used to, and after I finished the 6-8 month cycle, people used to tell me, Amrita, you seem so clear now.
Yes.
So all that will happen. But yes, off and on, the memories will come. I will be sad. I will miss him.
Yes.
But that's all it is.
Correct.
Right?
But you can still choose to pick your rainbow, because that's the whole point, right? That even though the pain can linger for a long period of time, you still have to go back to that inherent self, which is in your case, your essence was to love. Whatever your essence is, you got to go back to that essence, and that essence is usually, from what I'm hearing, a very positive thing. It's not a negative thing. It is, whether it is curiosity or it is love or whatever the other different essences are.
It's
It is pure and it is positive.
Pure. It's pure. Pure is always positive. And
exactly.
This is the word I wanted to tell is, when I said love, it means beauty. So I see beauty in and out.
Yes.
So for me, if I stay in that space, I actually blossom. And so processing this grief for my brother was also brought in automatic. Since it's automatic to me, I saw the beauty of what he contributed in his death. And in the book also, it's a beautiful poem. Those who have read it said, Amrita, we are tearful when we read it, because it's the essence of who he was when he was alive. And even in his death, it still serves me.
And
that's what I got out of it.
That's the point, right? That
that's
even
the rainbow, right?
Even as he passed away, the memory of him and what he left behind is where the central focus starts shifting towards, where as the pain starts lingering away.
So the reprogramming happens.
Exactly. And I was going to ask you that as the next question, is that clearly, in order to sort of, first you need to stay in that perfect storm, and when you recognize that there are these secret gifts that perfect storm gives you, how do you then reprogram your mind to sort of go back to your essence?
To add to this question a little bit, Amrita, while you think about it, is that you talk very beautifully about love being an essence, or going back to your essence, whatever it is, whatever your pure essence is, that purity that you feel inside your heart, going back to that, picking the rainbow. I love that. It's fabulous. And the third thing that you said was letting go of this toxic positivity, which means that everything's not going to be wine and roses all the time. There is going to be, you are going to have ups and downs in your life, and you're going to have to sit with those as well. As you sit with the other storms, you have to sit with your negative feelings and negative emotions as well. Now, given all these three things, that concepts that you've kind of given us, now where do you go with the reprogramming of your subconscious, which you said started when you were 3 and 4 years old?
So the couple of things that's coming. The couple of things that's coming, if I just go back to what Seema also asked us, how do I recruit? So one is one of the ways to and to some extent will answer yours as well, is the reason we need to reprogram is simply because of the program that has been put in us, which is now
Yes.
not empowering anymore. It has become self-defeating. As a
Yes.
child, it may have served me to survive.
Yes.
Okay, be quiet, Amrita. Be disciplined, Amrita.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah.
ask questions, Amrita. So as a child, it has served me. Don't do this; you'll be shamed and ostracized. So as a child, it helped me. But now it is becoming. It is hampering me. It's hampering my life and my
Yeah.
relationships.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I see people
So,
everywhere. Why are people authoritative? Why are people mean to me? Because I am allowing it. Right.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So then the reprogram need for it. So one very important point is, first of all, and I will harp on this even at the end of the session, is to be aware of the fact that you need to change.
Correct.
And the reason I'm harping is people who are watching this, if they don't, I know I have come across a lot of people, even in my personal life, who don't feel the need to change.
Mm.
Let's stop the conversation. The person is actually not happy, but they don't want to change.
You have to have the humility to recognize that there is a change required. I think that's the
So the
first
first
step.
step is self-awareness, is what I meant.
Yes.
Are you aware? What are you creating?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, the other side is always greener.
Yeah.
Concept that I've come up with people. So being aware is very important. Then we'll work on the reprogramming.
Yes,
Yes.
correct. The first step is reflection and awareness.
Yeah, because if the internal motivation is missing, the hypnosis, aap jo bhi karao, it doesn't
Nothing
work.
will work. Yeah, nothing will work. Correct.
So that happens. Second is, when we do talk about reprogramming, it's also to understand. So why I talked about these patterns is, when we say reprogramming, we are talking about bringing ourselves out of those voices and patterns that we are used to, right? So again, it's the ABC technique that you can use. You can use a lot of NLP techniques, right? Like, for example, there is a technique called perceptual positioning, where you take up different positions.
Mm.
You know, it's an internal conflict that I have, that, you know, I do not know how to collaborate. I don't know, there's a conflict with someone and I don't know how to work this out. We do an analysis process where we are going out of our cluttered mind. It's a slightly first level of hypnosis. We can do it ourselves, meditative process, that I look, like, for example, if I'm talking to you about you, Seema,
Yeah.
you will look at, you'll detach yourself and look at yourself in that conflict
As a third person. Yeah.
as a third person, and then you will look at every minor things, and you would have missed out a lot of stuff. Certain
Right.
clarity about emotion. Oh, this was not guilt, this is anger. Oh, this is how I behave usually. And you will realize. We also look at the other person's reaction, and we realize, oh, this person was really sad, I didn't realize it. So a lot of these perspectives come up without our pattern way of thinking. Okay. And then as a mentor and as a system level of person, you know, that we look at, with a higher source, how I will look and how will I guide. And this is a very therapeutic way of looking at it, where our pattern thinking does not come in between.
Right.
And whenever I've done this exercise with people wake up and they just, for a few seconds, they're just stunned, because they did not expect to have a different opinion by themselves.
By themselves. Yeah.
Right? Now they have had a shift in perspective. Okay. I wouldn't call it reprogramming yet. Right? The shift in perspective, that, like the way I said, now I operate from love. Oh, for me, that was a big awakening. Oh, that's all I have to be. It was so simple. It was shift in perspective. But to reprogram, we have to practice it. We have to create situations.
Yeah.
Either create situations in our mind and
So,
keep
like,
practicing.
are you talking about
visualizing it.
affirmations? Are you talking about affirmations?
Affirmations, visualizations, and finally also taking the courage to practice it in real life and saying, okay, we'll do it.
Yes.
We'll see how it works out. So
Yeah.
that's how we actually do a step by step. And to be able to operate from that, you have to be in your core essence, right? So Deepma, we've been skipping that point that you've been asking in between. One of the ways to identify is, like I said, appreciative inquiry process. For example, if, and this is again a visualizing process that you can use. There are different techniques. One of the techniques that I'm telling you is, in a very meditative visualizing process, after feeling the whole body and being very mindful of the present, you ask that person about when, recollect that moment when you were in your peak. when you felt you were the peak of the world, the best moment that you can, like, whenever from the, you can pick 2-3 of them and run through like a movie as if you're experiencing it right now. Literally live it right now, because people have forgotten all that. Okay, they remember intellectually, experience it, because the body is very, very wise. So experience it now, and in that, pick up every aspect that's coming up. Who are talking what is this, what are you hearing, what are you listening, what are you doing, how are you feeling, what are you wearing? Experience the whole thing, and in that moment you ask a lot more series of questions, like, what were the qualities that made it like that? What did you hear that made it like that? What did you say that made it like that? Whatever, you take it, and through that series of questions will come out what really mattered in that moment. Or the opposite. What was your most difficult circumstances, and and similarly drive through and ask them what was missing in that. What made it so challenging, so difficult, and whatever, horrific or whatever. What was missing in that? And they'll get it. And it's a process.
Correct.
And that's when you realize what that really matters to you more. And those are your core values.
Right.
And if you do this and you do this activity and you realize you put those core values in every situation where it went well, you will see why it went well, because of those core values being present in that environment.
Right.
Which means that's my essence.
That's your essence. Yeah.
So if I can identify that, and for me it was simple, beauty in and out. Wherever there was beauty, people are happy. Live and let live. Where everybody's happy, I'm happy. Automatic. My son needs to be happy. Simple. Then the next questions, what makes it happy? So reprogramming is all about questioning my basis of my assumptions.
Yes.
Assuming happiness to be my and his happiness same. So start questioning your own questions.
Yes.
And that's when the reprogramming happens.
Wow. I think that if parents can actually go through this process, and I think that the first statement itself, which is stay in that storm for some time, stay away from toxic positivity, be very self-aware, start identifying what your essence is, what is the essence of your child, what is it, then start reprogramming, in the sense that start asking yourself a lot of questions and then reprogramming your mind. This entire process is something that if parents are struggling with either the behavior of their own unresolved issues or the behavior of their children, I think this is a beautiful exercise for anybody to go through. And we can't wait for your book to come out, because I think, and we hope that book is going to give us the process and a lot of answers that I bet everybody is going through, because we talk about it all the time, that we form belief systems at a very young age, and then after some time those don't work for you anymore, they're useless. We got to get rid of those belief systems that are not working for you. How do we become aware of those, and then how do we get rid of those belief systems? So I think Amritha, thank you so much for being with us today. I think that your book is going to be a game changer for sure. Called Secret Gifts from the Perfect Storm, and I know it's coming around mid-June is what I hear, and we are very excited. We can't wait to actually get a copy of that and kind of get our hands on it. So thank you so much, Amritha, for being on our show, and I hope a lot of parents find a lot of answers that they have been looking for when it comes to being in their own perfect storm.
Thank you, Amritha, so much. This was very, very enlightening. Just wanted to say, parents, one of the things, I think one of my biggest takeaways from this is identify your essence, identify your child's essence, and then empower them to lead their life according to that essence. Let them follow that essence instead of all these other very typical things that we get caught up in unnecessarily. So thank you so much. I interrupted. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying that the book will definitely give a level of awareness. That's for sure, because that's the feedback that I've got. First step is self-awareness, then is transforming yourself, and then shifting others. So the book is to encourage people to just wake up.
Yes, and we need that. We certainly need that. And Amritha, please do let us know when and how a person can get a hand to one of the copies of your book. Wish you all the best. We'd like to wish you all the best, and I can just see that this is going to be amazing. It's going to be successful, and we are really honored that you were here today to talk to us about it.
Pleasure. It's mutual pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.